Adolf Hitler. The Führer's obsession with Operation Barbarossa. Hitler's plan to invade the Soviet Union in 1941 was one of the largest military operations in history. His decision to attack the USSR is often seen as one of his biggest strategic blunders, leading to a prolonged two-front war. A turning point at Stalingrad. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943, marked the first major defeat of Hitler's forces, and it became a significant turning point in the war. His refusal to allow a retreat resulted in catastrophic losses for Germany. The failure of the V-2 rocket program. During the war, Hitler's regime invested heavily in advanced weaponry, including the V-2 rocket. While initially a technological marvel, it failed to turn the tide of the war and caused massive civilian casualties. The formation of the SS, Hitler's paramilitary force, the SS, Schutzstaffel, became a major tool for enforcing Nazi ideology and carrying out atrocities such as the Holocaust during the war. The failed assassination attempt. In 1944, a group of German military officers attempted to assassinate Hitler in what is known as the July 20th plot. The failure of this plot led to brutal retributions and further solidified Hitler's control over the Nazi regime. Winston Churchill. The Battle of Britain. Churchill's leadership during the Battle of Britain in 1940-1941 helped ensure that Nazi Germany did not gain air superiority over Britain. His speeches inspired British resistance, and he played a crucial role in organizing the country's defense. Churchill's determination at the Casablanca Conference. In 1943, Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt met to discuss military strategy, including the decision to demand unconditional surrender from the Axis powers, marking a significant shift in wartime diplomacy. The Normandy invasion, D-Day. Churchill was integral in the planning and execution of Operation Overlord in 1944, which led to the successful invasion of Nazi-occupied France. This marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's regime in Europe. The Iron Curtain speech. In 1946, Churchill's Iron Curtain speech in the US described the division of Europe post-war. Though not in the immediate period of Dubitaipus, it foreshadowed the onset of the Cold War, signaling Churchill's foresight about global geopolitics. Churchill's secret wartime diplomacy with the Soviets. Churchill navigated the tricky relationship with Joseph Stalin, balancing cooperation with the Soviets and maintaining British interests in the Middle East and Europe, particularly during and after the Tehran and Yalta conferences. Joseph Stalin. The surprise Nazi invasion, Operation Barbarossa. Stalin was caught off guard when Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa in June 1941. Despite intelligence warnings, Stalin initially believed it to be a bluff, which led to catastrophic losses in the early days of the invasion. The siege of Leningrad, the city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was besieged by Nazi forces for nearly 900 days from 1941 to 1944. Stalin's government refused to evacuate the city, which led to immense suffering and starvation, but ultimately resulted in a Soviet victory. The Battle of Stalingrad. One of the most significant turning points in WSU. The Battle of Stalingrad, 1942-1943, was a key Soviet victory. Stalin's command and determination played a crucial role in the defense of the city, marking the beginning of a Soviet offensive that would push German forces back. The Moscow Conference of 1941. Stalin met with Churchill and Roosevelt in 1941 to secure Soviet support for the Allied war effort. Despite the tension, the conference laid the groundwork for Soviet cooperation with the Western powers during the war. The use of gulags and terror during the war. Stalin continued his purges and repression throughout WE terms, sending many of his own officers and citizens to forced labor camps. This severely impacted the Soviet war effort, particularly in the early stages of the war. Franklin D. Roosevelt. The Lend-Lease Act. In 1941, Roosevelt introduced the Lend-Lease Act, allowing the United States to provide military aid to Allied nations, particularly the UK and the Soviet Union, before officially entering the war. Pearl Harbor and the declaration of war. Roosevelt's leadership was tested after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941. The next day, he declared war on Japan, and 4 days later, Germany and Italy declared war on the US, pulling America fully into the global conflict. The Yalta Conference, 1945. Roosevelt played a pivotal role in the Yalta Conference with Churchill and Stalin, where critical post-war decisions were made regarding the division of Germany and the establishment of the United Nations. Roosevelt's fireside chats. During WSET, Roosevelt used his fireside chats to communicate directly with the American people, rallying support for the war effort and keeping morale high despite the challenges. The creation of the United Nations. Roosevelt championed the creation of the United Nations in 1945 as a mechanism for maintaining international peace after the war. This was part of his broader vision for global cooperation post-WSET. Benito Mussolini. Mussolini's alliance with Hitler. Mussolini entered WSET on the side of Nazi Germany in 1940, seeking to expand Italy's influence in the Mediterranean. However, his military failures and Germany's eventual defeat would lead to his downfall. The Italian Campaign. Mussolini's leadership was called into question as Allied forces invaded Italy in 1943, eventually leading to his capture and overthrow. The Italian Campaign was a turning point that weakened the Axis powers in southern Europe. Mussolini's controversial fascist state. While in power, Mussolini established a totalitarian regime in Italy, using propaganda, political violence, and militarization to maintain control. His fascist ideology directly contributed to Italy's involvement in the war. Mussolini's dramatic fall from power. After Italy's surrender in 1943, Mussolini was arrested, but he was later rescued by German forces. He was set up as the puppet leader of the Italian Social Republic, which was short-lived. The execution of Mussolini. In 1945, Mussolini was captured by Italian partisans while trying to flee to Switzerland. He was executed by firing squad, and his body was publicly displayed in Milan, symbolizing the complete collapse of his regime.